Hello, this is Azanar coming back to you with another episode of Knights of Honor. In the last episode here, we became England, the mighty powerful England, and we're just resting ourselves at the moment, dealing with some rebels and internal problems, before we eventually continue our conquests, moving up towards Lothian and Scotland, and then eventually moving over to Ireland as well.
Yes.
We got a lot of rebels towards the last end of the last episode here. So you go to the province overview, and see our happiness is actually quite good. But for example, if we move, let me just see here before we do that. Yeah, Wales, I'll move you guys. I'll move you guys there to deal with the Welsh. For example, if we go to East Anglia and we go to happiness, we can see that going in here, if you go to wars, there's 9 for nostalgia. Nostalgia is this game's version of separatism, where the people remember that they were once part of another country and they're not particularly thrilled to be part of yours right now.
What is your command?
In order to get rid of that, you need your clerics. We're going to send our cleric to govern Kent. All of our provinces, except for Normandy, will have this modifier. Now, in order to get the possible chance at converting a province, you need your clerics to be full, but this actually is 100% every time. So we're just going to spend those 900 books and bring Kent into our fold. Over the next while here, we're actually going to use all of our books exclusively for that. We could use them to continue upgrading our merchants, but our income is actually quite good, and it's not really necessary to do so. Now, as you saw earlier as well, a second son was born. We simply want to wait for our king to die till at least one of these children reaches age. That way, when our king does eventually die, as he's quite old, we won't have enormous problems dealing with rebels like we are now. In fact, it would be even worse, and a number of provinces could possibly break away, being quite damaging to us and our goals.
Let us restock and rest.
Okay, Reginald's completely restocked. And now we've restocked Tybalt as well. And a third prince. A little excessive at this point, but we may be able to use an extra prince when our king dies, having our new king become a merchant, and maybe another, although we will want to eventually go to 6 armies. We're going to move our northern army into there. We're not at war with Lothian yet. They are continually at war with Scotland, though. Something that we may be able to exploit for our own benefit. We're going to send our holding armies into Wales to deal with the rebellion, and now we're going to get back to some province management. We're going to build our last harbor here in Kent. We might as well build the ink maker there. We're going to build a church in Mercia. Normandy here simply has buildings that we'll want to upgrade. We'll upgrade to the Admiralty. And in York, let's build a bakery. Now our northern armies will very quickly be crossing the border here into Lothian. You can see that Earl Peter is making a beeline for the coast. But Lothian here seems to be completely and utterly defenseless. Therefore, let's declare war and take what we know is ours.
What is your command?
We're going to send Guillaume into Wales. He's going to stay here. And Huguet, we're going to move back to Normandy, holding 1 army here, 1 army there. And for now, that should ensure that we're strong enough to deal with anything that comes our way. Now, very quickly here, we are going to want to continue getting ready to build an army. Yeah, Scotland's happy with what we're doing, but to be honest, we don't quite care, do we? We're going to go to units here. And we're going to see. Normans, we can only build in East Anglia right now. What about Longbowmen? Longbowmen we can build in Kent and Cambria. Being that we can build Longbowmen in 2 provinces, I don't see a reason to ready any other provinces to do so. Therefore, we only need to ready provinces to build Normans.
I have learned once again.
Built an Admiralty here. A victory. Oh, of course it's a victory. That's all we bring out is victories.
Now that I am more skilled, I want to raise.
Probably a bit of a mistake maxing that out, but that's fine. We're going to hold here until Lothian is taken. And then we're going to go after the Highlands. Now we can afford to take the rest of the conquest of England a little slowly. We don't necessarily want to rush through this too fast. Because we want to get our armies ready to be equipped with really good troops that will carry us to the rest of the game. Once our armies are equipped with strong troops, instead of having to tag team each army that we go against, we'll be able to hit armies 1-to-1 and win very consistently. Now, with some cultures, it's a little harder to do than others. But one of the things that I like to do in this game as well is if a nation has a really good unique unit, to exclusively field those. For example, with the Golden Horde later, Steppe Cavalry is their best unit. Essentially, Mongol horse archers, and you'll want to field armies of nothing but those. With England, you can, if you want, field armies of nothing but longbowmen and consistently win over and over and over.
I greet the brightest ruler in the world.
However, in this game, we're not going to do that. We don't necessarily want to leave our longbowmen completely defenseless. Now here, we still don't have a lot of workers here, so we're going to build the stonemason. It's going to give another worker and produce columns, and then after we're going to get the Sculptors Guild to produce statues. This is a decent thing to have Cambria do, considering that Cambria can't actually do anything else for us. Now, one thing I will do, actually, I'm changing my mind to Normandy, is we notice that Kent can build longbows, and East Anglia can build Normans. It is something that's possible. We are going to retrofit Huguet's army. In Kent, we're going to build a wall. I was thinking about possibly producing Normans here as well, but since they are one of the only 2 centers we can produce longbowmen, it's actually not necessarily the best idea. For our army composition, since our longbows will be our strongest units by far, we're going to have our armies with 6 units of longbows each, and then 3 Normans. The Normans are essentially there to provide cover for our incredibly strong archers. As well, the army will have our martial cavalry. So the composition should be quite good. Now, the only issue, as you can see with longbowmen, is that they're incredibly, incredibly expensive. What we're actually going to maybe want to do here is put a bit of a hold on this. I'll finish retrofitting Huguet's army, simply because he has the least skill of all our generals and could use the stronger troops to make sure that he continues to survive and live. But what we're going to want to do here is look at finishing some of these kingdom advantages. So we have wax. We need wax and salt. We're going to go in here, and we're going to find these down here and see where we can produce these. Salt is something we actually cannot produce at all. The closest place to produce that is either Champagne, Trondelag, Jutland, or Saxony. Now, we could always go to Scandinavia, I guess, but it's not something that's really in the cards. It's not something we want to do. However, Champagne is part of France. It's part of the area that we need to conquer. Therefore, after Scotland here, I actually think I'm going to, for a little bit, switch goals, completely switch direction, and instead of immediately going after these Irish provinces, who are completely defenseless, completely alone, and have no real threat to us, we're going to fight a quick war against the French with a full 4 army, force them to give us provinces. Since we're going to be taking Champagne, we'll take Flanders at the same time, and after we take those 2 provinces, we'll probably just damage their economy and then leave them alone.
My liege.
Strathclyde is almost brought into our fold. Very good. Now here in Cornwall... yeah, so we can produce a lot of trade goods here. So we're not going to want to do anything militarily here. In fact, I'm going to remove this moat for room. It's going to be 6 buildings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have enough space. So we're going to begin knocking all of the trade goods we possibly can out in Cornwall. Cornwall as well has 6 workers, which is actually a decent amount as well for this goal. At the same time, we still have a lot of money, so we're going to hire 2 more units of longbowmen into Huguet's army.
What is your wish?
And we're going to sit. Now, Strathclyde. What is Strathclyde up to? They're upgrading a hostel. I actually quite like that. They have a Fletcher. We're not going to get rid of that. Fletchers can easily be used for longbowmen. And they have a swordsmith. After this hostel is done, we're going to take a look at what they can produce in terms of trade goods, but actually I don't know how much we want to produce here. In fact, we may focus as hard as we can on those trade goods and not much else. As you can see, the worker and food amount in this province is really poor. Although some of that has to do with the fact, yeah, it definitely has to do with the fact that they've been completely raided out. We'll have to see what it is we want to do with this province.
Warm food at last.
But it's a decent option for producing trade goods. We can, can't produce longbowmen here, but we can produce Highlanders. Highlanders are actually a pretty good unit. Going to send him to East Anglia and adopt that population and recall him.
Yes, my lord.
We may later want to produce out of Strathclyde and the Highlands some armies. Having Highlanders instead of Normans is actually a decent switch up. It's not bad, not horrible. Highlanders are obviously not as protected, but they'll have higher attack.
Yes.
What we might do with a Highlander army then is have a different composition. Say instead of 3, say having 5 Highlanders and 4 longbowmen. Now, here, the only economic buildings we can build now are the Dye's Workshop and Inkmaker, but we don't need to do those. We already have both of those. So we are going to set up Brittany to build Normans. Bakery in York is done. We're going to want to build a market, and we are going to want to find Huguet and continue to purchase longbowmen. Now, we are going to set him to govern Cornwall, because for some reason we jumped over Cornwall when adopting population. Now if we go to our kingdom wealth, you can see now that we are producing 9 books every tick. 1 from a library, 1 from our cleric, and 7 from towns. It's actually not as much as I would like, considering we have 9 provinces. 2 of them obviously do not have churches.
Yes.
But it's not a big worry right now.
I will go.
We have built a new building.
These guys we are going to completely leave alone. It's of no use right now for us to go after them, because they have 2 very strong armies. They look like they're comprised mostly of either Axemen or Highlanders, but because they have 2 full stacks against our 2 full stacks, the fact that we have very poor units will make it complete waste of our time to deal with them.
I am moving.
So what we're going to do now is to gather our strength, and we're going to muster ourselves for our war against the French. Now the best way to do this, I think, will actually be army retrofit before we go do this. I don't see a reason not to. Huguet, we're going to send to East Anglia. Guillaume, luckily, is in Cambria, which is our other center for producing longbows down here. And we're going to begin retrofitting his army.
What is your wish?
Reginald and Tybalt, we're going to keep up here because we're going to want to produce Highlanders here before we go south to pick up longbowmen.
Time to move.
The largest kingdom, it says it's Albrecht of Germany. I very much believe that. Now we can see the political situation in France has changed. France now has prevailed over a number of countries. They have 2 vassals, Lotharingia and Pamplona. What we can see here, though, is that the number of nations which we now have to take provinces from has gone to France, Italy, and Lotharingia. This very well could easily change again before we complete our final conquests, but it shows that the political situation in this game is never stable, and you can never, ever really know what's going to happen next. You have to very much stay on your toes. Always, always, whenever you can, go to the political map mode and take a look at what's going on, because you do not want to be caught unaware of big changes happening on your borders without you knowing. Interestingly enough, Sicily still holds Rome. It's one of their only 2 provinces, and the other Catholic nations seem to really not do anything about it. We probably could go take back Rome, but it's not really one of our goals. If this were a longer campaign, you know, it was more long-term and had a lot more things that we want to accomplish, I might do it, because it would give us very good relations with the other Catholic powers. But seeing as though this is a very limited campaign just in England and France, it's not really necessary. Now, the swordsmith is finished. We're going to begin building our armory. And here we are simply going to build up our Normans, finish Huguet's army, and we're going to send him off to Normandy. Now, I think the plan for this war is going to be for Guillaume and Huguet to begin raiding, probably into Anjou, south from Normandy. This will allow them to pivot to defend Brittany if we have to. And we are going to, from the sea, jump into Flanders and hit this province quick before moving south into Champagne. Now, France continues to expand. They've expanded into Friesland now. This province isn't one of our goals, but in order to weaken France, we may want to actually take this province and give it to Germany. This will give us goodwill with the Germans. Not a bad thing, considering very quickly they will border us. And it'll simply just throw a wrench into France's plans.
What is your command? Yes, my lord.
We're going to continue to build up.
Foreign loyalist dogs are rebelling.
Okay, here we go. We're going to show our strength. Huguet is going to sail for Brittany, and he's going to deal with this alone. Look at that. Look at that. France is coming to us. How nice of them.
I obey.
It seems they've already either guessed at what we've been planning, or very likely France is just in a very expansionist mood and we're one of their neighbors, who historically they have a problem with.
Yes, my lord.
Prince is grown. Here we go.
Wisest of rulers.
For some reason, this prince has reached age first, but if you look at his stats, these stats give bonuses to the areas in which they're proficient. I don't particularly care about espionage. But a 2 to warfare, and especially a 3 to economy is good. This means when he is king, we're going to get a big economic boost. We're going to adopt the population in Cornwall. And very quickly here,
Let's march. Raise sail.
we're just going to
I
put
love
these
the
guys
sea.
back out at sea.
What is
And
your
we are
wish,
going to send them back to
Yes, my lord.
Strathclyde.
Time to disembark at last.
We have built a new building, sire.
What is your command?
We're going to throw as much money as we quickly can into Guillaume's army for retrofit. Then we're going to move him. How is Brittany doing? They're actually advancing towards Normans quite quick. I think I'm going to move him here and wait until this province can fill out his infantry. And then we are going to strike out. Now, with Huguette and Guillaume's armies, we're still only going to raid. We're going to wait until these armies are retrofitted before we begin our assault. But that's enough for this episode. Until next time, this is Azanar. If you liked this video, give us a like. If you really enjoyed it, throw us a subscription, and we'll see you in the next one.